I learned critical care through podcasts.
Oh, wow.
And so now I'm going to the burn world. So let me learn about burn, and how I do it is in podcasts. And then I found out there was no podcast.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so it was kind of a disappointing lack of podcasts,
Yeah.
given the sort of how the zone is flooded of podcasting right now, especially in the medical world. And so when we came here, heard about VelocityTX, toured around, saw you guys had a podcast studio. Like, okay, so my partner Jake Swan, he's a surgical he's a general surgeon, then did critical care. He also did trauma, and then did a burn fellowship. And I did medical critical care. I said, well, we can probably come up with this from two different
Yeah.
points of
Yeah.
view. And so our thought process was like, okay, well, how do we teach and disseminate information to the widest audience possible?
Yeah.
And so that's why we started the TBSA Burn podcast. And we're starting it out. We just started dropping episodes last month, weekly drops of episodes on most podcast platforms. And we're starting it out, simple as possible, of just the most base level burn care, from the pre-hospital medic, ENT, all all the way up into you get into a ER, up into a burn ICU, and then all the different subjects going
Yeah.
from there. So as simple as possible, to the base level learner, all the way up to eventually the subject matter
Yeah.
experts.
Well, so you're talking about how there's this lack of podcasts in this space, but it's like a very specialized space,
Mhm.
right? So you guys are coming from this military angle, which includes, I feel like, a lot of pre-hospital care. How do you feel like that translates into the civilian sector? Like, I mean, it seems like you would have a lot of lessons that other folks would be like, yeah, we get our patients at a definitive care facility, right? That's
Right.
where we start.
That's not necessarily the case.
Okay.
And so that's part of it, is you have the, pre-hospital, and then to a whatever your closest ER is, which is, for most people in the country, is not going to be a burn center.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to be close enough to a burn center, great. And so that middle part is very similar to what you might say is like a military role too.
Okay.
And so teaching people at not just the pre-hospital level of being at a hospital at all, but at a non-burn hospital, actually translates more than you would think.
Yeah.
And so, getting to have an understanding of, at its simplest level, how do we take care of these patients when you're not a specialist, I think is very important. And I think something that we bring to the table.
Yeah, wow. Okay, but so for the DoD, there's one burn center. So you're
Yeah.
here. So you're talking to your friends and your colleagues, and then that message is going out to these. How do you ensure you reach those groups? I mean, you started last month, but like, I mean, it seems like it's a pretty tight knit group, I imagine, to do burn
It's
care.
Yeah. So there's not that many burn centers. It's less than you'd think, but we, especially Jake, who did a burn fellowship, not here. He did his up in Minnesota.
Oh,
He and is able to talk to people that he has interacted with that have gone to burn centers around the country. But also just the fact that we can go to conferences and talk to other burn other burn centers and figure out what they're doing. And honestly, a lot of these big burn centers, they put out all their burn practice guidelines online for free.
hmm.
And so, for instance, I was writing a episode today, and I was like, oh, well, what's Vanderbilt do about this? Well, I just go and look at what they do
Yeah,
about this. And, oh, well,
yeah,
that's different from how we do it. Why is that? Let's look at the data behind it.
yeah,
And so eventually, as we get more episodes and establish ourselves more, hopefully we can spread out into the national and possibly even international burn community and figure out what everybody else is doing, really for the ultimate goal of taking care of patients.
yeah, yeah. So you mentioned Vanderbilt. What are the kind of areas you look to? Like, I guess tell me about the big burn center. What? I don't know. I know we have a burn unit here. We have the only DoD burn unit, right?
Yeah, that's true. The big centers are also associated with like the big centers period.
Mhm.
So, we've mentioned plenty of times shock trauma
Yep.
in Baltimore. Vanderbilt's a big one. Up in, Minnesota, Chicago, all those places have burn centers. Emory and Grady in Atlanta, also having some aspects of the burn world. And so I don't think that we are such a small community, and it's not enough data to say like this person's doing it the best possible way. Also, how do you set up your burn unit is so wildly different across burn centers,
Yeah.
which is really surprising to me. That I think having us eventually us be able to come together and say how is the best way to do this would be a great thing, because I don't think there's one leader that says like, well, we have to do it that way,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so I hope that answered your question.
No, it did, because I'm like, well, who are the key groups you're trying to connect with, and then the audiences you're trying to disseminate all this information to,
Yeah.
and like where do lessons learned from, like who are the groups that like a lot of the trauma stuff tends, like we talk about Pitt a lot, right? I think
Hmm.
Pitt has a pretty strong case there, but I think San Antonio is also pretty strong in the
You've been
trauma
watching the
stuff.
show.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I love lived in the world. So
It's a good
yeah.
show.
Oh, that show in
Yeah.
particular. Yeah, that's a fine show.
Yeah.
Well, I am excited to see the content you guys put out, and I'm glad you guys are doing it here at Velocity, Texas. So
No, I really appreciate you guys. You guys were sort of a godsend of just like, how do we even get started in this?
yeah,
Well, you got to have a place to record.
yeah,
And so having this has been like, okay, well, we have that. That's the big chunk. Everything else is on the outside.
yeah,
So we really appreciate that from you guys,
yeah,
of allowing us to do this. Podcast is on most of your podcast platforms. TBSA, total body surface area, is what we talk about in burn all the time. And then Instagram is TBSA Pod. We're working on our website and getting that up and going. So hopefully by the time you see this, we'll be closer to fully forming that,
yeah,
and really just trying to get a community and being able to get direct feedback from the listeners about what they want to hear.
yeah.
And so that's what we're working on right now. TBSA, come check us out. We'll hopefully have a lot more episodes by the time you start listening.
Yeah. Well, have you guys started working? Have you worked with War Docs? You guys?
I have not.
Okay.
I know that Jake has been in contact with like, well, how are they doing it? I've been
Yeah.
in contact with other critical care podcasts, specifically one in El Paso, and just how they've been sort of doing
Yeah.
it. And so I don't think there's a definitive
Yeah, not
roadmap
at
for
all. But I mean, that's
this.
another San Antonio group that I
Yeah.
think you guys, military physician, would be a great way to kind of
Yeah,
connect
the
with
other one's
them.
Behind the Knife. It's a really, really big one.
Oh,
And
okay.
so we have this
And then
small niche little world.
yeah.
They're sort of, changing the way that all of surgery is being
That's
taught.
interesting. Well, I do like, to your point of like the burn might be the small niche, but there's so many connections and then lessons learned for the more general practitioner that like, even though you might say, well, burn practitioners are this, a lot more people might be interested because there's just benefit gained to them. To to your point, like we don't have a burn unit, but we still get burn patients, and it's really cool to hear some guidance on how should we treat those as we get them to a burn unit, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, anything that we can do to help to
Yeah.
increase the outcomes of these patients, I think is going to be our ultimate mission here.
Yeah.